I love that little countdown. Do you see that on your end? The
Yeah.
little 3, 2, 1. I love that. I can't. I always forget about that when I hit go live. So we are live. So welcome everyone who's about to hop on, who's probably getting the notification that we are now live. This is for the Institute for Diversity Certifications, Career and Collaborations group that we have on our group page on LinkedIn. And today we're going to be talking about career setbacks. And I got to tell you, it has been this way all year long. The first person I thought of, I reached out, sent a text, and right away she responded and said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it." So I'm super, super excited. This person has started out in HR and I think even starting out as a trainee and then got into being a generalist. Moved into D&I with Dell Technology and sort of moved her way up there after getting her MBA, by the way. And then we met at Wyndham. She was in destinations. I was her counterpart over in hotels and resorts. We would call each other and, hey, how do you do this? And what are you doing for that? And then the pandemic happened, and I ended up being out on the street with so many others, millions of others. And then we continue to stay in touch. And then I think maybe a couple of years after that is when you left Wyndham, and we sort of traded text and emails on LinkedIn during that time. And then the talk about small world. I think you were in transition. I'm on with a new company, and then I reach out, just a regular networking, and no, you reached out to me and said, "Hey, were you in Orlando a couple months ago?" And I'm like, "I'm living in Orlando." And we come to think of it, we should get together. And then it turns out we're in the same complex, living
Yeah.
in the same community together. So that was so nice to reconnect that way and be neighbors now. And so we continue to stay in touch. And again, when it came to this topic, because I know I was in transition, I know she's been in transition, and I thought she would be a good person to cover this topic. So, will you please welcome to the LinkedIn Live, Yogita Inamdar, and it is so good to see you, Yogita.
Likewise, likewise. Sure, it feels so
Yeah.
good to see you as well. It's like, we've connected and we are reconnecting again this evening, this afternoon for anyone who's joining from the West Coast. And it feels like, having a conversation with an old friend,
Yeah.
which you are.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's get right into it. So let's start by talking about sharing a bit about your own experience with career setbacks. And so what was one of the most challenging moments in your career?
I there have been quite a few, but the first one always kind of sticks with you, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I was kind of like pretty early on in my career. I think I was 3 years, 4 years in, and we are now in December. And after December comes March, when we all go through a performance review process,
Yeah.
and um, of course, like we are writing our self evaluations, and then there are people who are taking decisions about what that potential journey would look like, either laterally or vertically. And I had done phenomenal work through that year. I had a wonderful year. I had completed all my goals. I had exceeded. I had gotten a raving kind of like evaluation, and then
Mm.
there was conversation about promotions, and I wasn't considered for that promotion, which, based on those conversations, I thought I would get it. I was
Mm.
the topmost contender for it, but I didn't.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, we haven't talked about this. So interesting. Interesting. So um how did you deal with that? What was your first initial, your reaction to that?
I was upset. If I'm being honest, I was really upset.
Yeah. Yeah. I could imagine.
I'm pretty sure many of the audiences here would have had that moment or not. But I didn't know what to do actually.
Mm. Wow. Okay. All
Um,
right.
and this was at the time where, especially when emotions are not welcome at work.
Mm.
And especially being a female, you're not supposed to cry at work.
Mm.
You're not supposed to be upset at work. You're still supposed to take everything in a stride. Now, this is almost like way, way back, right? As I said, early in my career. And I wasn't coached to receive this kind of like moment. You're doing
Yeah.
everything. And I don't think I was prepared. So I cried.
You now, I wonder if this comes in. Now, does this were you in India? Because I know when you first started your career in HR, you were in India.
India.
Was John Deere, was that in the US or was that here?
No,
And so were you, and
here.
did that occur? I don't know if it makes a difference or not. I'm curious. Were you in India or was it in the US?
I was in India. I was in India.
Okay. All
Because
right.
as I said, I was still early on in my career, right? Like
Yeah.
I was an HR professional for 3 years at that time, approximately. And wherever I went, the quality of my work always showed up, and I like to show up as a professional at its best, like exceed expectations every time. So I think that was the shock for me.
Okay. So you cried
Yeah.
and then what? Now, how did you begin to cope with that? And I'm curious, what happened next? How did you get through that?
So I cried. I went home upset. Um, I called in sick the next day.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mm. I almost was ready to quit my role at that time, and I said, "I'm going to look for a job."
Yeah.
And I'm not.
Many of us do. Many of us do in those situations. Absolutely.
And at that time, I didn't know this concept about what psychological safety,
Mm,
what psychological impact it would have for me at that time, right? So, um, but then as I called in sick, um, a friend called me just to check on me.
from the workplace
From
or okay. All right. Okay.
they had heard, and they called me and they let me be. They let me rant. They let me vent.
Mm-hmm.
They let me get it out of my chest. And they said, "You've called in sick. Take this one day. But remember that not getting that one title at one time does not define you."
Yeah. That's smart person. That's very good. Thank goodness
I know.
that person, talked to you about that.
Yeah. And they're like, don't think about it. Come tomorrow again at work and start reflecting of what else
Yeah.
would keep you going. What excites you about your job? Like, why are you? And even if you go somewhere else, emotionally, you're going to carry that rage almost
Yeah.
to another place, and that might not help you reach your full potential of where you want to go.
Absolutely.
So I think that advice has kind of like stuck with me, and now like this friend has become my mentor also, right? So whenever there is a moment of like sharing or getting some advice, I always reach out to them and they always give me good advice. So
Oh, that's awesome. So that sounds like a strategy. Did you develop more strategies that you use to build resilience after a setback?
yes, I think that's when I became, or that was kind of like my starting point to become intentional about how I would like to own my career.
Love that.
Um, and it also made me realize that upskilling, we talk about upskilling all the time at the work now. And especially with now with Gen AI, everyone is talking about how to continue to be relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I started getting that lesson, a decade ago. And since then, I think that was kind of like one of my inspiration to go back to school and get my MBA, because I wanted to see how I could further challenge myself. How it also taught me to not be shy. And one thing that I learned in this country is, if you don't ask, you don't get.
Hmm.
Something that stood out to me. So if I don't ask, I'm not going to get either from somebody else or either from myself. So that always sticks out to me. At that time I started journaling. I started almost kind of like, now we call it as affirmations here, but I had a little vision board of what I wanted to do.
Oh, that's great. Love that.
So all these things, and even any hobby, right? Like, even if it means just taking a walk, or spending time with family, and even watching some soap operas, I think that still helps. And it's okay. I think like career setbacks could be stem from either not getting that promotion, not getting a project, going through a furlough, going through a layoff.
Yeah.
This is a, I think, a setback comes in many different ways. But ultimately, I think something always happens for a reason.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, hey, I want to ask you about you talked about mentors. I want to talk about support systems, but hold that thought. I'm getting a text or an email here about I'm gonna jump on LinkedIn. Someone's telling me that they're not seeing the LinkedIn live. So let me just jump over real quick just to see if yeah, I see us on here. So yeah, I think we're up. Maybe it was an old email.
Good.
So looks
Okay.
like we're live on there. I'll leave it up on my phone so I could see if there's any questions that come through on LinkedIn. And let me just take a quick look in the chat here. Yeah, I see. Hi, Nalda. Thanks for making it to the show. So I see her. She commented on LinkedIn, and I see it there and here. So I think we're good.
Okay.
Uh, so you mentioned the this person that called you at home when you called out, and that person became a mentor or someone that you continue to reach out to. So how important have those support systems been? Recovering from a career setback, and is there are there other mentors, are there peers or family members that have helped you during these times? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I think so. Having that support system is important, either from family, friends, colleagues who you trust at work, or even anyone that you would meet, and you develop that relationship. I think one advice I had received when I had started my career, or when I'd gone back to school, we had like a career kind of like a class, or how do you present yourself? What does leadership presence mean?
Hmm.
And something that was talked about in that class was having your own kind of like advisory group, or having your own board members.
Oh yeah, yeah, I've heard that. Heard that before. I love that. Your own board of directors. Sounds very cool.
Yes. So I think that is a way of like having mentors or having that support system, right? And I do have my little board of directors, my little group that keeps me honest. And they always give me that tap on the shoulder of like, hey, you're getting complacent. What happened? You've not, So it's very good advice that I get. It's very um in a playful way, in a respectful way. They keep me on my toes. So that has helped me. I think that is a huge support system for me. Of course, family, because jobs are going to come and go.
Yeah.
Family is here to stay. So even if it means, like, you're not sharing anything, but you're quiet and they understand your emotions, I think still helps. And over the years, as my family has grown, as I have had kids, I look at them and I see they have been my inspiration as well. I see them riding a bike and they fall, but they cry and they get up and they go back on their bike and they're having a good time. So I look at those little moments, and that becomes a learning inspiration for me as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. That's so sweet. That is so sweet. I I had a with this latest departure from the reorg that just happened with my previous company. I had a family call that we had for a family reunion, and so we had members all across the country from the Simmons family, and
Mm-hmm.
then I kept my immediate family on after that call to tell them, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
and just the support that you get from your kids. It's one thing when they were little, and of course you're bigger than life to them, and oh, daddy, but now that my baby is like 31. It's 31 now, and my oldest is he just turned 39. And but to hear it from them now, as at the age that they're on now, and hearing that is still comforting. So yeah, family is forever. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
uh Go
that's
ahead.
I do want to touch upon. I know whenever there is a setback, and especially when during a time of a layoff or a furlough, or I know there is, with the climate that we are in right now. I mean, a lot of companies are having, and right, so imposter syndrome is real. I'm sure individuals go through that, and it is. I would say it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have that moment of where sometimes as individuals we would second guess ourselves, we second guess our capabilities, we second guess everything, but don't dwell on that moment or mull in that moment for too long. Find that next little thing, and you know and move forward.
Yeah.
Is that one little small step of reading something, reading an article, or you know just having a conversation with chat gpt at this point. I mean, it still helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Utilizing your resources for sure. um okay. And that sounds like this is a great segue into that, because that sounds like a lesson there. So, what are some key lessons you've learned from overcoming those setbacks?
As I said, imposter syndrome, I mean, I think it's more defined now. I didn't even know what that definition at that time. Practicing self-care, I think, was something that I've learned over the years. Again, all of this sounds very easy, right? Like, it's easy done. But it's I know there are moments where it's very hard to keep that positive outlook.
Yeah, yeah,
So for me, that has been, and the support system helps you to keep that positive outlook.
hmm,
So, because if you know your network, if you reach out to them, if you let them know that you're open for opportunities, I think then you activate your network in a way, and there is a support system, and they are aware of what's happening, and they're looking out for you as well from an opportunity standpoint.
yeah. And that's helped shape your professional outlook, right? I mean, it has for me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because change is the only constant. And I know for organizations making decisions, it's not personal, but for an individual, it's a very personal decision,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
um, it defines, I mean, our profession defines to some degree who we are. It's our identity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like whenever you have a setback, somebody's stripping that identity away from you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I was all, for me, and what I would also say about that is, the very first setback I had, I was definitely in my feelings, and then I just sort of ran right into what's the next thing and what do I do and how do I recover, with not really setting back and taking time for myself. I just sort of immediately reacted,
Yeah.
as opposed to back in 20 during the pandemic. I was all in my feelings, but what I said was, it was midweek when I got the call, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take the rest of this week to just feel it, be in my feelings about it. I
Yep.
was upset, annoyed, all of those things, self doubt, and and then I said on Monday, and then carry that through the weekend, and then on Monday, I'm gonna then start building my strategy, my plan of attack, and what I'm gonna do. And I did the same thing just a month ago. And it was a Friday, and I said, you know what? I'm going to take my wife out. We're going to go hit the town and have fun for the weekend. I think I put on 7 pounds over the weekend, and then Monday I got back to work. So yeah, you definitely learn from those things. It was different than the very first time. So
Yeah, I think the first time it hits hardest, and then it gets, I think, a little bit easier after that first time. So that's why I wanted to talk about my first kind of like
yeah,
it, because that's always going to be near and dear to me, and I think it's made me stronger, and more accepting of what potentially could happen,
yeah.
at any given point.
So now that you're experienced through those, what are some immediate actions you would tell our viewers today, that you would employ? What immediate actions would you recommend someone taking after experiencing a setback?
Um, I would say it's okay. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to let out your feelings.
Yeah.
Um, because I think, we talked about psychological safety, we talked about psychological impact. We often have this, we tend to brush our feelings.
Hmm.
I think it's okay to take that moment and accept, because I think that acceptance, almost to some degree, grieving, helps you prepare for that next step. What I would not recommend is like staying in that moment for a long time,
Yeah.
because that is not going to do benefit to us either as individuals. Looking back at, like, your resume, I every 6 months I take an inventory of my skills, of, like, what have I learned, what can I learn, what can I improve upon. I think that would be a good start as well, to take that skill inventory, and then identify interests. I think, whatever excites somebody, I mean, if it's, or understanding what those transferable skills would look like. So that is what my recommendation would look like or mean. And I had read, Option B, a couple of years ago, and I like that book. And sometimes, like, I go back to that book and I see that there's always an option B. There's always a plan B. That
What? No, I don't think I've heard it. What is the name of the book? That's the name of the book. Plan B.
book, Option B.
Option B. Option B. Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look this up. I don't remember coming across that one.
Yeah, it's about, care for yourself. I mean, in a nutshell, it's about, it shares about different stories, right? It's about, but taking care of yourself and others during hardships, and those
Mm,
range from a career setback, or even, losing near and dear ones. So it's a range of emotions and hardships, that an individual would go through. I like that book.
Cool. I am curious to see what you have to say about this. How should one adjust their long-term career plans after a setback? I'm curious to know what
I
your thoughts are on that one.
can gain some insight from you too. I mean, I think my career has been what, like more than a decade just now. So, I think I'm still young in those regards, but um, I think staying positive.
Yeah.
But it's staying positive, and I think, as I said earlier, right, like that board of directors always keeps me on my toes. So they ask me hard questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I think sometimes, like, I'm always almost looking in the mirror when they're asking those hard questions, because I don't have answers to them. In my head, I'm perfect.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all?
But
I
is that so really? So it gives me a good reality check.
yeah. I don't know. I actually I don't remember seeing this when I sent this question to you until just now. I'm looking at him going, I for me, I don't I don't know about this one. I might have actually struck this one because I don't necessarily like this, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would adjust my long-term career plans. If I have a setback that has occurred, if I think about some of the setbacks I've had in my careers, not just a furlough, but maybe not. I haven't had that situation where there wasn't a promotion, but I have had something major that I was trying to get pushed through, and they didn't want to do that, and it was pretty upsetting to me, and um, I had to figure out what I want to do. And in fact, talking about being emotional, I remember it was very early on in my career, and I was proposing this plan for orientation, and I had this all written out and how big this plan was, and I was proposing this in the meeting, the executive committee meeting. So it was all of my peers to the GM, and the GM was like not having it at all, and just sort of just totally um, made me feel like I didn't know what I was doing and what I was talking about, and it was devastating,
Yeah.
devastating
Yeah.
to me. But I wouldn't, back then I didn't go and change my long term career goals from that. I did go back and reassess what can I do to get this what I wanted accomplished, get it accomplished in a different way,
Yeah.
which was how do I properly onboard team members at this particular hotel, and I did figure that out. So I don't know that I would change a long term career goal off of a setback, and I think even when I think about the situations that I've been in where maybe I've been furloughed, now maybe you might adjust because now maybe you're going to go into a different industry, which I haven't done yet. I've thought about that, but haven't done that. I grew up in hospitality, went to school for it, and I did think about should I pivot, and now maybe that is where it would apply. But then if you're going to do that, you have a whole set of things you're going to have to do in order to make that pivot too. So um, I would say I wouldn't necessarily adjust a goal that you set for yourself right away. What I would assess whether a career setback,
Right.
and then do that is what I would say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's like one thing that I've learned. It's never the journey is never like a straight road, right?
yeah,
There there are always curves. There's always you always have to pivot. You always have to stop. So I think for me, it's more about the destination. Like, it's not like, get to the destination the way you plan.
yeah, yeah,
It's about
yeah,
that journey.
absolutely.
So yeah. No, I would agree with you on that one. I mean, I wouldn't change my career goals. I would change my tactics maybe, but not
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. So let's talk about when I this next question. I'm thinking about again a career setback, probably where you're. maybe in either in transition, or you're in a role that maybe is not working out. And you're trying to figure that out, right? Or like, what happened to you early on, where you knew you were ready for the next step. That now that I think about that, that did happen to me once before, where I wanted to transfer to the bigger hotel, and take on that role. Same role, HR director, but at the hotel down the street, same company. Just I was looking to be promoted to the bigger hotel, bigger scope of a job, and I was told, no, you're not ready for that. And now I had to deal with that. And so my question is, how do you keep yourself motivated? What tips can you offer for maintaining momentum, motivation as you were working through a career setback?
Um, brave, being brave and bold.
Oh, I love that. Love
Um,
it.
I'll give you an example. There was a time when, in one of my roles, I had realized that I had reached a glass ceiling. I reached a plateau and I had to make a change. At that same time, because of some personal situation, I also had to move from one state to the other.
Mm,
I saw that as an opportunity. Now, the state I was moving in, I had no network in that state.
mm,
I knew nobody. I went on my LinkedIn and I randomly started, I
yeah,
did a search to see who in HR, who was my second kind of like connection, who was my,
yeah,
and I pinged people introducing myself and saying like, hey, I don't know you, but I would love to get to know you.
yeah.
Moving to the state and I'm looking for opportunities as well. And can we grab a cup of coffee? Out of 15 or 20 people, almost 10 people reached out to me.
Oh, wow. I was going to say maybe you got two.
No,
10. That's great.
yeah. And, that kind of like opened doors for me to land for my next opportunity. Now, was I scared? Yes, but
Mhm.
I wasn't bold and brave at that time. Maybe that next opportunity for me wouldn't have had happened.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you, you got a side hustle right there, because I think getting that kind of return, you got a side hustle on teaching people how to write little notes like that to get people to respond, because it's not
Yeah,
always
yes.
that easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Yes, sign me up. If you're wanting to reach out to somebody, let me know. I'll write a small note for you.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Hey, I see Russell, my good friend Russell's joining, uh, uh, listening in or watching. So, Russell, good to see you. Thank you for joining. Good to see you, sir. All right, let's see. Okay, adaptability. In your view, how important is adaptability when dealing with career setbacks? And can you give us some examples of how being adaptable helped you?
I don't know if this is a career setback or not,
Yeah.
but when I moved from India here to the States for my education, I think, adaptability and flexibility were the two kind of like biggest qualities, or, what I had to, because I had to adapt to a different country, to a different culture completely to assimilate. Um, my accent was much, much heavier than what it is right now
Mhm.
when I had moved. So, it was almost like re-identification, or, understanding who I was. And those are really very near and dear to me. I think if we are not adaptable, if we are not resilient, then the journey just becomes tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those are dear to me. And even now, right? Like the way us as HR professionals, the way we are thinking about workforce, the way companies are thinking about their businesses with everything that's coming with technology, I think we have to be resilient towards it. We have to be adaptable towards it, because then both of those qualities kind of like spark into some kind of creativity and innovation of like, even if it is one simple thing that you can change, I think, it sparks an idea.
Yeah, yeah. You've mentioned AI earlier on at the top of this. You are an adopter? You've been you use AI in work?
Yes, I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, at work, we are not allowed to, but yeah, on my personal time, I do. I like to play with it.
Isn't that interesting? So at work, they don't want you to use it. That is so interesting. Same thing happened in my previous company. Our IT team introduced it, and did a presentation on how it could make work easier for you. And the one thing that they had that I really wanted to see be used was the note taker.
Yeah,
And everybody was sort of saying the whole Terminator thing, and oh my, seeing how well it was,
yeah,
but they didn't like that, and they ended up shutting that off. But that was because I'm not good at taking notes from meetings,
yeah,
and that I thought, wow, that's going to finally save me, because I was doing DEI board meetings, and it would have been helpful to have that so that that could go out to the team, as opposed to me trying to remember what was going on and writing as I'm thinking and talking and leading the call. And they didn't want to do that, but that is where we are today. That's we got to get over that stuff.
there's a lot happening in this space, like from governance standpoint, from how does data, like what kind of confidentiality and privacy, data privacy kind of like concerns. So more to come. I think that's where many organizations are trying to see the used cases.
Yeah, yeah,
But individually, I am exploring the space.
yeah.
Is Google has some certifications, and they have, I think there is a free AI course that they have. So if anyone is interested, feel free to go and check out the Google website and see what course that is, and sign up for it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I encourage you. I did not earlier this year. I had no, it was last year. I went to the LinkedIn conference last year, and it was just you know AI this, AI that, and I got back from that conference. I think it was in September, and October the following month. I said, "Man, I gotta. I don't even know where it is. I don't even know how to log in or where it's at." And started that in October of last year. And now you'll hear me say, oh yeah, I just did this presentation. Chad helped me with this presentation, my assistant Chad. And some people will go, you have an assistant now? Yeah, it's Chat GPT is.
Yeah, yeah.
So, uh, oh, okay. Who is this? Somebody just jumped in. I bet you this is Jennifer, who's dropping this in the chat. Microsoft Copilot.
Yes.
Awesome. I bet you that's my friend Jennifer, who I was talking to this morning, who was telling me about Microsoft Copilot.
Okay.
I haven't used that one. I asked her to send me the link so that I could mess around with that. So, oh, and I see someone else is saying that there's many courses on LinkedIn. So, thank you for that. Oh, and Russell says I use AI almost day. Yeah, let me tell you about Russell. Russell is, for you, those of you that don't know, Russell is a hospitality marketing guru. He's got one of the top radio shows, online radio shows out there. And I will see on his content, it will be a video that pops up that says, a little snippet from him that says, "Hey, coming up later this week, I'm going to have my guest so and so that's doing it," and it's AI. It's not him,
Oh,
but it's him, and it's his words and his voice are very, very, very close. Because I know him well, I could tell. Oh wait, at first I didn't. Now I can tell the difference. Just amazing. So
yeah. It's Absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Oh, he's correcting me. I'm sorry. I did say this before. It's not a radio show. It is a podcast. So pardon me. It is one of the number one hospitality podcasts. So I got that right now, Russell. Um,
Sure, he's chuckling and giving you an eye roll, Victor.
Absolutely. That is how we roll. We've known each other long, 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 long time. So I can hear him I can hear him right now through the laptop. Victor, it's podcast. All right. Where are we? Let's go. Preventative strategies. Another interesting question here. So, are there strategies or habits that folks can develop to potentially prevent or mitigate the impact of future career setbacks?
I think staying relevant is something, right? Like, I mean, there are some things that you just
Sure.
predict. Some things are bound to happen. And especially now in this day and age, we are seeing more and more companies, in the name of efficiency, going through layoffs, right? So
Mhm.
I think at any given point, we should consider, a furlough or a layoff or a career setback, um, and plan around it. Like, not necessarily have that sentiment drive us, but, do what we need to do, keep us motivated, keep us continue on that learning journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
It happens, So I think that for me that's how I look at it now after having multiple setbacks throughout my professional journey. So
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. And get you talked about the AI certifications. I would say whatever your field is,
yeah,
doing the certifications in your field, HR, DNI for me is what I've done. But whatever it is in your field, get those certifications. Um, and then with this gig economy where we are now, for me, my company is a small little company, handful of hotels, a little more than a handful of hotels, and so I know you've seen this, and folks that are on here that know me see me do some speaking engagements. I do a couple a year, and that was, just getting yourself out there. It's another form of networking. So networking, I would say, make sure you're doing that. You mentioned that earlier, and if there are things that are parallel to the industry that you're in that you can do on the side, if you're able to do that, I would recommend doing that because that might be a life preserver for you if you need to jump to something else. So I would also recommend those things to consider as well.
yeah, and I think now opportunities. I mean, they're being like very traditionally. I think a job or a 9 to 5 kind of like setting was that one path, right? But now,
Mhm.
in addition to that, there have been so many opportunities, that can fulfill an individual, like beyond 9 to 5. I see my friends who are either consulting or who are either
Yeah,
in kind of like board positions, paid or unpaid. They have their own side gig with a little kind of like they're being entrepreneur too. So there are a lot of things that you can be creative in, that might help with career setback.
yeah, yeah. Very good. All right, listen, we're getting close. We got a couple more questions. So those of you that are listening in and watching, if you got questions, drop those in here for Yogita or for me, and then I'll move on to the next last couple of questions here. So resources and tools. What resources or tools would you recommend for those looking to be able to overcome a career setback?
Definitely, we talked about certifications, right? That
Yeah.
um, For me, I like to read books. I like to listen to books. So those have become like good resources for me. I kind of like indulge upon understanding how can I reinvent myself per se. So I reach out to my network and have intelligent conversations because they keep me sane. So
Yeah.
that, and then like even doing this LinkedIn Live, I think is one of the resources as well. So those are things that come to my mind or on top of my mind. But yeah, books has been like my way of learning something, because the more I read, then an idea pops up for me, and when I have an idea, then I can work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great advice. I'll tell you, my bookcase is full, but it has been this. I can't, I did not crack open a. Did I get to? Yeah, there's two books I got. Renee Brown was one that I haven't finished. So that's another thing I need to work on. So thank you for bringing that up, because I just realized I'm falling behind a little bit on that. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
You work.
All right, final question.
Yeah.
How has overcoming a setback changed your perspective on work and life, if at all?
Yes, it has, and I had mentioned that earlier. A job or a work,
Mm,
I think it has a definitive starting and ending point, depending on either a decision that somebody would make for you or a decision that one would make for themselves. But family and friends and the personal relationship that one makes are here to stay for their lifetime. So that has changed my outlook.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I was just talking about this. She's a big influencer here on LinkedIn, JT O'Donnell, and several years back, I was of the mindset back in, Russell will tell you, when we first started out, I was of the mindset, you go work for Marriott, and you work for them for 30 years, 35 years, and retire. And JT O'Donnell, and despite Russell telling me, no, you need to make those moves, man. And I was not listening to that. I wanted to build a legacy, a career at one particular company. And then JT O'Donnell, now I'm hearing it from somebody else.
Yeah.
And she was one of the first ones that talked about, yeah, that the companies ain't thinking about you being there for 30,
Yeah.
35,
Yeah.
35 years. And you need to be able to reinvent yourself. You have to be able to pivot. You need to be able to um, find the right job for you, and that always isn't at the same place. And so yeah, absolutely. It took me a while to get there, but I finally figured it out.
You touched upon something, and that was another advice one of my other mentors had given me, and continues to give me. And they always say, it's not about perfection, it's about growth.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's great. That's terrific. Well, listen, we have come to a close. I am dying to ask you about a different topic, because this is, a DNI organization, and it is big news that's occurred. And so I know that you are a DNI practitioner, and I'm curious to know, what are your thoughts about how we move, how we're navigating. I don't even want to call it a storm, because it is bigger than it's. What is the biggest? You're here in Orlando. What are the hurricane? The largest hurricane category is what, a 6? Is that the largest? Is it 5 or
Five.
6?
It's a five.
All right. Well, I think we got a 10 coming
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
this new administration. So, what are your plans? What's in your mind of how you were gonna approach things moving forward? Because we did see. Listen, I'm not one of those, the sky's falling types of individuals, but I did see what this administration that's incoming did the last time they were in a minute. I'm talking about Trump, and what he did last time, where he really did go after DNI. He did executive orders that were casting down DNI efforts in the government. And as a result, we have seen plenty of conservative organizations going after corporate D&I programs. And so I think we are going to see a lot of that coming our way. And so have you been thinking about that? Have you been preparing for that?
Yeah,
What's going on with you? What are you thinking about?
yeah, I'm thinking about it. I've been reading again, right? Like I've been watching trends, and noticing, and we talked about some words early on, right? Like
Yeah,
talked about being resilient, we talked about being patient, we talked about being adaptable, and I think all of those three kind of words fit in.
yeah, absolutely.
Um I don't have an answer just yet, but I think it's also an opportunity for all of us as professionals to pivot and redefine, to some degree, what DEI means for us, for organizations, and for the community and for the society as well, right? So I think it's still going to be relevant. It's still going to be important. Maybe the name would change again.
Yeah,
It's with only D, then it started with DEI, it started with DEIB.
yeah,
But the underlying thing is anyone who works in any organization wants to feel included, wants to be valued, and wants to belong in that organization, right? Like fundamentally, I think those three, no matter who you are, that's what you want to do.
yeah, absolutely.
And I think that would be still relevant discussion for any organization to move this forward. So I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I am I'm also a little bit apprehensive of what how this would shape for the future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I did write about this the other day. It's going to get it's there's no other way around it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, that is what's going to happen. We just got to start thinking about it now, and we got to start preparing for it now. The work still needs to get done. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Whatever are these leaders that we support, they're going to call it whatever they're going to want to call it and change certain things. But the work is still got to get done. um, Businesses with different perspectives financially do better than
Yeah,
homogenous teams. It's a
right.
fact. And so if you want to financially prosper, you need to have different perspectives in the room. And my I said this also that nobody ever says um, we want to have mediocre people. We want to have, um, you know, the worst of the worst, just to satisfy a quota. Nobody says those things,
Right.
and we want the best and the brightest running our operations. And we're going to continue to do those things because we want to have a successful operation. So we will get there. We will prevail. There will be obstacles, as there always has been, but that's what makes us grow. That's what makes us smarter, and we will ultimately continue to prevail. So, Yogita, it's so good to see you. I don't think we have any questions. Let me just look and see on LinkedIn if there are any there. I don't see any there, and I don't think I see any here. So I think we're good. So hey, we're gonna we got to get together and have a smoothie over at the marketplace or
Yeah,
a cup of coffee or something. So
yeah, let's do it.
let's
Plan for it
yeah
soon.
text me, and we got to get our buddy um,
Jose.
Jose. We got to get Jose on a call. His brother-in-law runs the marketplace. By the way, I don't know if you knew that,
I
but
did.
his brother-in-law runs the marketplace. So we're gonna have to get together. I'll text you and we'll set that up.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun. Yeah, I loved it.
Uh,
I
my
hope
pleasure.
the audience enjoyed this conversation. I mean, as I said earlier, it's like having a conversation with a friend over coffee, which we
Yeah,
did, but yes, it was a conversation with a friend. So
yeah, My pleasure. Thanks so much, Yogita. Nalda, I see your thank you as well. So Nalda, thanks for jumping on, and thank you for your accolades to us. I appreciate it. All right, everybody. Have a good day. Take care. Bye.